Okay, welcome everyone. This is the 18th regular meeting of the Government Transition Advisory Committee. Today is Wednesday, March 13th, and we'll be here from 6 to 8 p.m. My name is Julia Meyer. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Engagement and Community Participation Manager for the transition. Our co-chairs, Destiny and Zach, will facilitate tonight's meeting. Next slide, please. And before we get started, I'm just going to go over some meeting logistics. This meeting is being live streamed on YouTube, and a recording of the meeting will be posted on the city's transition webpage under past meetings and events. For today's meeting, we have closed captioning, American Sign Language, and Spanish interpretation available. To access Spanish interpretation, you can click on the globe icon on the bottom of your screen and select Spanish. To access closed captioning, click on the CC button on the bottom of your screen. For committee members, please take this moment to change your chat settings to everyone so that folks listening in can follow along. And please remember that the meeting chat is part of the public record. For community members listening in, you have the Zoom Q&A feature available. You can submit questions or comments to the Q&A function. We may not answer all of your questions live during the meeting, but we do read them, and they also become part of the public meeting records. At today's meeting, we have some time held for verbal public comments, but as a reminder, folks can submit written public comment at any time through our comment form online by calling 311 or by emailing us at transition@portlandoregon.gov. I do want to remind folks that the Districts and Council Operations Subcommittee and the City Transition Team are co-hosting a series of community listening sessions on the future of City Council operations. The first one is tomorrow, virtual in the evening. And then there are two next week on the 19th, which is in person in East Portland, and the 21st, which is also virtual. So we encourage not only GTAC members to come and participate, but also to help us spread the word. With that, I will pass it to Destiny to review tonight's agenda.
Thank you. I just want to make a disclaimer or notice that we do have a documentarian joining us today in person for a working title documentary called Laboratory of Democracy. So they will be taking some video clips today. For tonight's agenda, it includes the first one, committee business, public comment. Third, committee engagement updates, scoping recommended improvements to community engagement, onboarding recommendations from the district plus council operations subcommittee, and district offices recommendations from the district council operations subcommittee. At the end of our meeting today, we will close with a brief review of our next steps. Next slide, please. Amy Wood and Leah are unable to attend tonight. Joe may be a little bit late, and Manny may arrive late as well. We have a membership announcement. Mobby has resigned from GTAC, and Terry has now been promoted to a full member.
What?
Congratulations to Terry.
It's going to be the same.
Congratulations to Terry. It's really exciting to see that. And we also want to appreciate Mobby's contributions throughout GTAC as well. Congrats, Terry. And then next, we need to approve the February 6th meeting summary. Oh, Joe, I see your hands raised.
Yeah, I just wonder if Mobby gave us her reason for resigning and if it's anything that we should know about.
I believe it was just out like too much capacity, I believe, right, Zach?
Yeah. She resigned for personal reasons and professional reasons not related to the business of GTAC.
And so again, super thankful for Mobby's contribution to GTAC. And again, congratulations, Terry. And thank you, Joe, for the question. Okay, yes. So back to approving the February 6th meeting summary. Does anyone have any corrections before I entertain a motion? I don't see any hands. And so do I have a motion to approve the February 6th meeting summary?
So moved.
Oh, yeah.
Terry so moves the motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
Amy seconds. Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. Wait, no, we didn't vote, right?
No, we still, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any comments for the meeting summary? Sorry, it's been a long day, folks. No comments, I see. Show of hands for all those that approve the meeting summary. I see a bunch of hands in person. I see a bunch of hands virtually. Okay, so it passes. Thank you so much, everyone, for bearing through that with me. Sunny out. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so we're going to go over the co-chair responsibilities. It's time to preview the next co-chair rotation at our April 9th GTAC meeting. We will appoint the next co-chair rotation. Those co-chairs will serve from May to August. We expect 2 more rotations after that, from September to December of this year, and then January to March of 2025. As a reminder, the responsibilities of the co-chairs are in our bylaws. Please consider whether you are interested in chairing the May to August rotation. Please also make sure you're available to schedule the GTAC meeting dates. And then let Zach, Julia, and I know if you're interested in the next rotation of co-chairs. If you're also interested in knowing who might want to serve in the September to December, we are also interested in January to March rotation. So let us know if you're interested in the next rotation, May to August, or you're looking out for September to December or January to March, looking at your schedules. Knowing who is interested helps us to ensure that everyone who wants to chair has that opportunity. And also, we recognize that folks are also chairing subcommittees in a work group. If anyone who's currently chairing those bodies wants to chair the full committee, you're more than welcome. We will find someone to replace you on those subcommittee chairs or work groups. So just let us know. Zach and I will help with the onboarding of the new co-chairs before your first meeting. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we have our working agreements now. We do want to recognize that tonight is going to be mostly all GTAC recommendations. We don't have any presentations today from the city, so want to acknowledge that there might be some harder conversation or passionate conversations in tonight's agenda. I ask that you please listen as I read through our working agreements and that you hold yourselves accountable to these agreements during our conversations tonight. The first one, in discussion, challenge ideas rather than individuals. Offer constructive suggestions. Second, approach different opinions with curiosity, seek to understand. Third, keep the needs and concerns of the local community and the larger region at the forefront of the work. 4, arrive on time and prepared to the best of your ability. Let the group know if you're unable to attend a meeting. We're going to try to incorporate tools for breathers or trying to help guide the conversation tonight more intentionally. The co-chair is Zach and I. 5th, keep multitasking to a minimum. 6, keep focus on the objectives of the meeting. Utilize co-chairs to know any additional topics for discussion by submitting topics in writing via email. Slide, please. Seven, honor the decisions of the group. 8, contribute to the overall success of the group by finding ways to participate that best meets your needs. 9, step up, step back. Collectively work to ensure that every member who wants to be heard is heard. 10, embrace conflict and work with your fellow committee members and staff to find ways to give each other feedback. Again, Zach and I as co-chairs will aim to incorporate various feedback tools. 11, use I statements. Okay, now I will hand it off over to Julia to introduce public comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Destiny. So now's the time we have held for public comments. As always, we ask folks to sign up ahead of time. And nobody has, so we were going to do that awkward pause and see if anyone in attendance, virtual, I imagine, wants to offer any comment. If you do, you can raise your virtual hands and we will invite you into the room. I know that's putting people on the spot, so I'm going to wait for a moment while you ponder. Okay, well, thank you for the awkwardness. As just as a reminder, folks can submit public comment at any time. You can call 311. You can email us at transition@portlandoregon.gov, or there's an online public comment survey on the city's transition website. And I think I'm passing it back to Destiny.
Thank you, Julia. Next slide, please. All right, now is our time for staff and committee members to share any new insights from their recent community engagement. Last time we didn't have time for this, so I'm excited to hear all the great updates or reflections you have. And so I'll first hand it off over to June to share some insights into our committee's engagement as a whole.
Thanks, Destiny. June Reyes, she, her pronouns, transition engagement coordinator, I don't remember. So I just wanted to highlight some of the engagement that GTAC has been doing. I think in January when we had last talked, we were about 20% of the GTAC presentations we did were in communities that have been traditionally left out of City Hall. And we've increased that to more than a third, so around 35% of these of our presentations scheduled with those communities. And I will say a lot of that has to do with GTAC making a push and for us all kind of working on really, prioritizing these communities when we are doing our outreach. And so I think it's pretty notable that I wish I could have given an update for February because y'all had 15 presentations, which is actually a lot. I remember one evening, 3 of you were out doing presentations. And so that's, I think the engagement that folks have with us there, because I visited a few of you, has been pretty meaningful. And so I just wanted to highlight that GTAC's efforts with shelter outreach, with Zach really leading that, Jane teaching many high school classes in such a wonderful way. Presentation started to the Latine community, including a few in Spanish. And a couple targeting elders in the LGBTQ community have really accounted for this shift. So thank you all. And so we'll need to continue this push as we move forward, and we can talk more about that in the next couple months. But please continue to document your outreach in the GTAC tracker. We look at that and we adjust, the way that we talk with community and then the things that we know we need to communicate more clearly. And then the last thing before passing it over to Destiny, in May, we're going to have sort of a shift to really talking more about voter education. So I'll be sending out a doodle poll for an optional workshop if you all want to, whoever wants to come, and then we can look at some new content, do some learning and sharing together so that we can feel ready for this sort of last big drive for engagement with our community. So I'll pass it back to Destiny.
Thank you, June. So now I'm going to open the floor for the full committee members just to share some reflections they've been having with their community engagement presentations. Okay. I will start out with Lori.
I've had 2 in the last couple of days, otherwise hadn't had any before that. And so it was interesting to me to note, number one, the complexity of the questions I think are increasing. People are maybe more informed. A lot of ranked choice voting questions as we would expect. And today I had I was sharing with Shoshana, interesting, two people were approached by candidates that were from District 1, only to find out that these folks live in District 4, and there was this confusion of what are we talking about? It was a crossover between county district and city district. And so I think we have an opportunity, number one, to be aware. Number two, maybe even educating candidates to make sure that they're clear who they're talking to and why, because these folks, this person that was in District 1 was approaching people in District 4 saying that, oh no, you're confused, you're in District 1. And so the people were confused. So that may come up for us, and I don't know if we want to do anything with our materials about the map or noting that there's also county districts. That was kind of interesting.
Thank you, Lori. I did not know that, so that's great to flag.
Yeah.
We'll work on that. Fabulous. Jane?
Thank you, Destiny. I just wanted to share a little bit about the fun high school groups that I've been in. I went to Roosevelt and taught 6 classes there. So there are about 20 kids in each class. And so, you know, quite a lot of people. The interesting thing is that in order to be able to talk about new government, they have to really understand the old government. So we're approaching this by speaking with teachers who presently teach government in high schools, and they're very, very eager for presentations. The one interesting fact is that I don't know whether the last time you were in a high school, but high schools now, their classes are 90 minutes. So when I go to teach, it's a 90-minute, you know, engagement performance, and the children can't be passive, students can't be passive. So by the end of the day, I'm pretty much inside out. You know, I wore a skirt the other day and it was on backwards by the time I finished. It was really kind of fun. But I think last week I was in Park Rose, which is out by the about the airport, and I did 3 classes, and those classes were very big. There were about 30 in each class. And I think that the big takeaway here is that kids know nothing about the city of Portland and what it does and where it gets its money and all of that kind of a deal. So I always feel good when I walk out that they know. And then when we get into the new form of government, how eager they are to vote. Most of the classes that I taught last week were all seniors. I gave out the little form from the county that encourages people to vote if they don't have driver's license. And these days, I would say more than 50% of kids do not have driver's licenses. So that's kind of cool. And then the other thing that is interesting to me is because they've never voted before in the one vote system, they're totally open to ranked choice voting. They think it makes total sense. They're used to voting that way for other kinds of things. They do a lot of that on social media where they rank certain things. And what I have them do is I sort of like make them promise that when the voting package comes to their home, that they will take ownership to teach the other adults, their parents, their grandparents, their aunts and uncles, whoever they live with, about ranked choice voting, because they are fluid with it and they don't have to relearn something. So I'm really enjoying it. I think we've got more demand than we can manage. If anybody is interested in doing this, I would be pleased to teach the lesson plan and have someone else come do it. Because typically teachers want you to come 2 days consecutively to do their A classes and then their B classes. And, you know, as I said, by the time you've done 3 90-minute presentations, you're pretty pooped. But anyway, I am having a lot of fun. And the good thing is it really has opened my eyes to how wonderful young people are, how smart they are, how caring they are. And that's a good thing too. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jane, for sharing your reflections. I'm going to hand it over to Zach.
Yeah, I'll be really brief. I've had a number of different presentations in the last couple of months. And just the main thing is that each one is very, very different, obviously. So as June mentioned, went to Dignity Village, which is a housing village up in North Portland, and they actually had David visit as a candidate. So they have already started to see candidates coming, and I think more and more there's an appetite for community groups to know a little bit ahead of time for candidates of what's going on in the city. So I encourage you all to start reaching out to local community groups. And I also would suggest if there is an interest of trying to secure a little bit more time, because like Jane shared with high school students, I think is true for pretty much everybody across the city, where there's a great opportunity for kind of civic learning in addition to the education and understanding of how ranked choice voting and all the different pieces of the transition is going. I also had a chance to present to Lewis and Clark students in Southwest Portland, and benefited from having a full hour with that class because you can really get into all the nuts and bolts, which they then have much more nuanced questions, which makes it more entertaining and engaging.
Thank you, Zach. I will pass it to Jose.
Thank you. Along the same lines as what Zach said, I've done most of the presentations I've done have been Far East Side. But recently, Juanita and I both did some presentations in Spanish. And I just want to, first of all, thank June for making the effort to reach some of those groups. The questions were completely different than what I've gotten in like neighborhood associations. A lot more questions that were basic and comments about how their kids never vote, even though they can, because they feel like it doesn't matter that their voices are disenfranchised, how they feel that way, and how they've never had a presentation like this before on something about city government. So I do want to say it again to June, how appreciative I am that we're making the effort to go into those groups and how important it is, because just those couple groups, you could see the appreciation in them. They came up to us afterwards, had a million questions. It was really a good experience. So I'm glad we're doing it, and I hope we continue to do more of it.
Thank you, Jose, for sharing, and that's really great to hear. And I'll pass it to Juanita.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Jose just reported. There was a very positive reaction from people. And one of the things that I was the most impressed with is the fact that although some of the women who attended some of these, or people who attended some of these presentations said that they couldn't vote, they also said that they have husbands or children who can vote, but they have never voted before because they think it's very difficult to go to register to vote. So that tells us that there is a need for making it more accessible and ensuring that there's people who speak different languages, and that is more reach out to these communities to facilitate the registering for vote, because I think that we're missing a lot of people. Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita, for flagging that and uplifting that as well. We have about 5 more minutes, so I want to hold a little bit of space to see if anyone has any final reflections or takeaways. Juliet?
Yeah, so I'm in District 4, and I attended the Sunday presentation by Lori and Leah. And that crowd, as Lori said, are really well informed, and they asked very sophisticated and wide-ranging questions. But on the other side of the coin are the people who work at Trader Joe's and US Bank when I go in and I say, have you heard about charter reform? And they have no idea what I'm talking about. So those are the people who worry me, and they so then I go back and I give them literature. So there are people who are just still at the very beginning of even knowing this is happening. So I just want to keep them a kind of front and center.
Thank you, Juliet, for highlighting that as well. There is a lot of Portlanders, voters and non-voters who don't know, so the big charge. Okay. Any other takers? If not, I will go ahead and pass it over to Zach.
You can go to the next slide. Thanks. All right, so last meeting, the full GTAC committee directed volunteer members to develop and propose a scope, outline, and audience for a letter that recommends improvements to community engagement to share with us at today's meeting. A group of volunteer members met on Friday, March 1st. And to aid the conversation, staff provided a background document that includes GTAC's work plan items related to community engagement. So Becky Tilson from the transition team provided us during that meeting an update to the group about some developments within the new city organizational structure, in particular 4 key disciplines, which are community engagement, communications, equity, and sustainability. Transition team envisions a coordinated project management approach to plan for the 4 new officer positions and related disciplines. That each discipline will have a project manager who coordinates with the other project managers, guided by a common set of core principles. The interim deputy city administrator starting July 1st, 2024 will serve as a steering committee, and each discipline is in a different starting place. So they have different stakeholders, desired goals and outcomes, and each discipline will have a conversation that includes stakeholders and produce eventually a plan. The engagement officer, an engagement officer will report to the assistant city administrator, and the timing to fill the officer positions is still unknown, but could be between 6 and 18 months. So the city is looking for feedback on this proposed approach as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Joe, Juanita, and Terry, who are part of the volunteer group, to present the group's conversation. Juanita, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Zach. First of all, I want to thank the staff for their help in doing the work that we did. I especially want to thank Julia because she developed a form that we were able to use. We wanted to know what is specifically what type of activities are taking place, and she developed a form that informed us about community engagement activities currently taking place, which departments and which departments or bureaus they are located, as well as their scope and their audience. So we got support from that, and I want to thank that. I want to thank also Joe and for Terry for volunteering and being part of the group to do this work. I just wanted to do a really quick comment about that. The work that we did and the focus that we had while we developed this outline is that we wanted the outline to be inclusive of all of the critical elements of a systemic, comprehensive community engagement functions. One of the things that we learned is that many of the pieces that are taking place right now are totally disconnected and they operate in silos. So all of this information that we receive from the city help us to have a very good view and understanding about how community engagement is being implemented currently. And I think just to finalize, I think I can speak for the work group in that we believe that community engagement is the only foundation over which the city of Portland can create a participatory, inclusive, accountable, and transparent government system. So with that, I want to pass it along to Joe.
So our recommendation is really very simple. We just want to do the job that we've been assigned as the main public engagement body for the transition. We want to be part of these conversations. We expect to be part of these conversations. And we have lots and lots of thoughts, all of us, not just me and Terry and Juanita, not just those of us who met to talk about this, but every single member of GTAC about communication, about community engagement, about equity, about sustainability. And rather than make a ton of detailed recommendations now, we simply want to say clearly that we expect to be part of these conversations. And, we'll have to figure out exactly how to do that, exactly how to make sure that everybody's voice on GTAC is heard in every one of those conversations. But really, it's as simple as saying, we'd like to do the job that we were assigned. Let me say that the only thing that might raise any question in my mind is that since one of the disciplines is community engagement, you know, aren't we focused on community engagement? And I think the answer is that all four of these are just so totally intertwined that the fabric really has all four of these threads running through it, that communication without community engagement is just propaganda, that community engagement without equity is just perpetuating the existing power dynamic. And all of this without sustainability is just rearranging deck chairs. Maybe I should ask if Terry, because you were part of this whole thing, but also others who were at the small group discussion on February 29th, if anybody has anything to add or clarify.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and pipe up. This was something that when the discussion first happened was enormous. Scoping community engagement for a transition like this is just an enormous job. And I think when we thought about it a little bit, we understood that, well, the transition is where we need to focus. And the importance is that there's gonna be a community engagement person who will be hired to think about and run community engagement for the city and report directly to an assistant administrator. Who's that person's constituency, if not GTAC, if not us, who? So I think when we distilled it down to sort of that, it made our job a little bit easier. And like Joe said, we are the engagement body as conceived, and engagement is going to be really important to these four areas that are going to be established, and these four persons who are going to be these four officers. And community engagement is just so important, and we need to be there because nobody else is gonna. So, but I thank Juanita and Joe for helping me think through some of that and for being able to put these recommendations together. I think they work pretty well.
I would like to ask a question. Has everybody read the outline that we submitted? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, okay. I guess we should ask if you have any questions regarding the content of the outline.
Oh, sorry, I'm, was waiting for, piping up and I forgot my duties as, so, Fred, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute.
Had to hit it twice, I guess. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Juanita and Terry and Joe. This is, I think, very important. I remember as a member of the group not drafting the scoping, but and I appreciate your work, but I was concerned and probably still am because of the reaction we had at the outset of our efforts to be involved in the government structure endeavors of the transition team and the council, to be told that they didn't want us involved. This obviously goes to the structure. These 4 disciplines will be important offices under the under the city administrator's office. I think it's critically important that we be involved. I don't know that being a partner appeals to them. Do we have any sense that we'd get any further if we just became an active advocate for enhanced community engagement, for instance, as opposed to a working partner? What sort of blowback are we getting yet already, or if any? Oh, and secondly, what's the next step? It's to write a letter. We'd make a motion tonight and then proceed to the committee with staff's help, write a letter. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
Yeah, great.
On the first point, Juanita, Joe, or Terry, do you have a response to the perception of?
I mean, I don't think we've heard anything.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I think maybe Julia can give us some feedback regarding that, since she's part of the team, the transition team, and this within the city. But and just commenting about just what you just said right now is that I believe that it was unfortunate, very unfortunate that the city didn't allow us to be part of the process of developing the organizational structure, because again, we're going back now to the same issue as we look into how we are going to establish a centralized or something that is systemic for community engagement. You're going to have somebody in charge of it. And so in that sense, when you put all of the elements, all of the scooping that we did, as Terry was saying, it is very comprehensive. There's a lot of elements to it. And so therefore, I think that what we can, to me, but that I can only speak for myself, my recommendation would be to focus the efforts of GTAC on the structure and the system that needs to be in place for community engagement. If we can only do that, I think that we will be able to truly create some change. But that, other than that, again, we are limited by our role as advisors and making recommendations only.
And Fred, I'll just comment on your last point about, whether we should want to be advocates or an active voice or partners. If we're not going to be partners in community engagement, we're just a speakers bureau. I mean, we ought to be partners in lots of other things, but community engagement first and foremost.
Thanks. Juliet. Go ahead.
I can't tell what slide we're on, so maybe we're getting ahead of things or I am, because we're just sort of talking about the philosophical aspect of this. But so is it too soon to comment on these bullets?
I know. I think go ahead, please. If
Okay.
you have comments on the proposed scope bullets, is that what you're?
Yeah. So I think the content.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm being told by my better half that we would need a motion, I guess, to discuss elements of potentially changing or discussing what would be in this, recommendation. No? Okay.
There's no motion on the floor, so.
I know, but we would need one to have the discussion of potential amendments. Are there amendments that you're proposing, Juliet, bullets or?
A little, yes.
Okay,
There isn't a motion on the floor, so there's nothing to amend. She could change it before it becomes a motion, so it already comes to the floor amended. Unless there is already a motion on the floor.
okay. There's not a motion on the floor. So go ahead.
I'll just hold off, Zach, until we get through kind of the bigger questions. How about that?
Okay, all right. Bill, do you have something to share before we see if there's a motion to?
Yeah, thank you, Zach. I support all the points with regard to the observation or concern about whether there's some blowback or resistance. Might we want, before sending a letter, might we want to simply call the mayor's office and say we're real interested in community engagement and want to be your partners? Can we confirm that's good with you? And if the appropriate rep of the mayor's office hems and haws, that makes a letter appropriate. If the person said, of course, then we're in. So I'm just asking whether there might be a sense that being a little less formal and calling the mayor's office might be constructive.
Thanks, Bill. Destiny, did you have a response to that or?
Yeah, so when I'm looking at the proposal, it says that the city's asking for feedback, I believe, on their proposed approach. And so if they're asking for feedback, we've been providing a lot of feedback and, doing a lot of research into the transition and being kept up to date. And also community engagement is our big charge. And I think this proposal defines how equity, sustainability, and communications all are pillars to getting community engagement. There's an equity lens of like, who have we heard and who haven't we heard? And then there's the part of communications. How is the city reaching out? What are their structures and the sustainability to do so? Where are they building relationships? Where do they have none?
Yeah, if Destiny, I think what I'm inquiring is whether we approach, even if we write a letter, we assume we are already partners, or I'm wondering whether we need to ask if we can be a partner. If the city already regards us as a partner de facto, then we don't need to ask to be a partner.
If I can just pipe in, Becky Tilson from the transition, gave us a presentation and gave us essentially an invitation to do this work. And so this is largely a response to that invitation. Okay. What they do with our response, we'll see. That would be the next step after we write the letter, right?
Yeah. And the points are all good. I concur with those.
Okay. I just am cognizant of time because we have on this agenda item up to 6:50. May I ask to see if there's a motion so that we can maybe discuss the letter itself and if we have an interest to assigning a volunteer group to actually write the letter?
So I'll be happy to make the motion that the language here is that GTAC authorize a letter to transition and elected leadership that contains the elements that are described in this document.
Great.
Second.
And Terry seconds. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Terry. Now, Juliet, sorry to thank you for your patience.
Not at all. Thank you for directing traffic. So I'm going to start by saying I think that I want to avoid writing letters that are too long. I'm going to tell you that I think there are too many bullets and some of these could be consolidated without sacrificing any meaning, and I would be happy to help you with that. Then I'm going to tell you I think you should add a bullet stating the obvious, which is that GTAC should be an active partner, because you have it in the preceding paragraph, but it's not stated among your bullets. I think that when you talk about down at the end, second to last bullet, when you talk about civic life, it's important to say something about related funding challenges, because that is still their main, the main concern of the neighborhood coalitions. And then in the last one, you say set the table for, and I know what that means, but it's a bit slangy. So you might want to make sure that it's really clear what that means exactly. So, and then I have just a little editing marks on here. So, and I'm happy to reprise my role as editor once this writing group drafts a letter. Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, thank you, Juliet.
Second, Juliet is editor.
I don't know if you heard that, Juliet, but Jose said he seconds you as editor. Jane.
Thank you. And thank you to the people who kind of put this together. I think it's great. I also think to whomever writes this letter, and I'd be pleased to help if you need it. I think that we should, first of all, celebrate the fact that we've got these positions. They're already in the book. So if they've already put their money where their mouth is, the city means business here. So I think that what we want to kind of like say is we would like to help with that business a little bit. I am making the assumption from what Becky Tilson outlined is that the community engagement person is going to be probably hired first. And if I got that job, the first thing that I would do is to talk to GTAC, because we've been out into the community. So I think that we want to offer our help to the community engagement person when they come on board. I think that there's a big issue here, which I know from my experience in community outreach, is you pay now or you pay more later. If you don't get out into the community early on, it ends up being quite awful and quite expensive. And I don't think the city has appreciated that with this form of government they have, which is where the commissioners sit on the dais and everybody comes and talks to them. But it's going to change. If I were to be a council person, the first thing that I would want to do is go to my district and have a community listening meeting. And the community outreach people are going to the people who do that. So I do think we want to kind of like say is that this is going to be a demand from the new councillors, and we need to be ahead of that. So again, I think that we should be less telling and more complimentary and offering help rather than saying, you know, you will do this and we want to partner, because I think they're 3/4 of the way there. And I think we would get to be a partner if we were gentle and congratulatory and very polite. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Amy?
Just two things to add on thoughts or things to kind of add into this. First is one of the things that we've talked about a lot as a committee is that the community engagement is always ad hoc, which I think the document does say and kind of touches on. But that to me feels like a really important point in our conversations, that like we really don't want it to be ad hoc. Like in no other situations should a committee be appointed and be like, here, do all of the outreach. And then second, forget the second point.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. And thank you, Amy. Joe, do you have your hands right for response?
Yeah, let me just say a couple of things about what Terry and Juanita and I were trying to accomplish, because I think that what people have said is very much in the spirit of what we've done. We don't mean to be impolite. I think the tone should definitely be polite. And if there's anything in this that comes off as less than polite, I hope our editors will make sure that it's smoothed out. The reason there are too many bullets is that we didn't want to lose anything from the conversation that we had in the large group. This isn't meant to be the draft of a letter. It's really meant to be the elements that might go into the letter. I think there might be some additional ones. Some of these might be out. Some of them might be combined. And I want to say it's not clear to me that anyone anticipated that we would play a key role in any of these conversations. Becky came to us and described that there were going to be 4 conversations and asked for our input in a pretty, open-ended kind of way. And our input might have been, oh, gee, well, we have these thoughts about community engagement and these thoughts about communication, these about equity, these about sustainability. Thanks for asking. And in fact, I think we want to make it clear that we expect to be part of those conversations ongoing.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, so in light of time and the fact that we've had a good discussion on this, I want to maybe repeat back what I heard and see if we have a motion to authorize the writing of a letter. So it sounds like we already have a few who have voluntarily proposed to be editors or helpers in the drafting in support of with the support of staff. And do we have, I don't necessarily think that requires an amendment per se, but do we have any objectors to the idea that there is not really an amendment here of what we've heard before we move to see if a vote? Okay, great. So I think I can pass it over to Julia to do a roll call for our vote to, again, authorize this letter to be drafted by a couple of volunteers with staff assistance and co-chair's approval before sending to the transition team and council. Is that correct?
Yep. So we have multiple votes tonight. I'm going to switch it up on you. This is going to be reverse alphabetical by last name. So guess where you're going to show up. Amy Wood is absent. Juanita.
Yes.
Amy Randall.
Yes.
Fred.
Yes.
Destiny.
Yes.
Zach.
Yes.
Juliet.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Lori. Yes. Terry.
Yes.
Honey. Yeah, I think she's gonna try to come later. Jose.
Yes.
Jane.
Yes.
David. Did David just show up as soon as I called his name?
Seems like it.
I should try to summon someone else. Let me circle back. Leah is absent. David, if you can hear me, did you just, I don't know if you've been listening into the meeting and we're doing a roll call vote on the scoping recommended improvements to community engagement.
And if you are talking, you're on mute. Oh, we just lost it.
Absent-ish. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That is 11 yeses, so that passes.
Great. Thank you for your help, Julia. And I assume you'll be in touch with the group about who will be writing.
Definitely.
Thank you for your work, Juanita, Fred, and Terry. Or sorry, Joe and Terry. Fred, I think you were my, yeah. Okay, let's move to our next agenda item, which is on another, actually a separate committee. So our subcommittee of districts and council operations, they were tasked with making recommendations on onboarding. So I want to thank all the subcommittee members for their work and a particular appreciation to Amy Randall, Joe, and Juanita for leading the onboarding work. So I will turn it over to Jose, who's the subcommittee co-chair, to present those recommendations.
Thanks, Zach. At our February 22nd meeting, the Districts and Council Operations Subcommittee voted unanimously to forward our onboarding recommendations to GTAC for consideration and vote. A copy of those recommendations was distributed last week to GTAC and was posted online. I'm sure someone will be sharing it in the chat. Thank you, Julia. I want to start First of all, like always, by appreciating the transition team, particularly Kate White, for partnering with us on this work. I also want to appreciate the Bureau of Human Resources and the City Attorney's Office for their flexibility and creativity. Now, starting on Election Day of 2024, Portland will be in uncharted territory. We will be doing important things for the very first time with a rough, sketchy roadmap, a lot of high public expectations, really wanting meaningful change, but everyone's going to have all their eyes. There's going to be a lot of close scrutiny. Most of our elected officials will be serving in elected positions for the very first time. Many are going to be unfamiliar with Portland government. Everyone will be somewhat unfamiliar with the new Portland government. There will be forming a brand new team and playing with a whole new set of rules. They'll have a lot to learn and a lot of competing demands on their time, and they'll have to do it all very quickly. And of course, they'll also have natural limit to their tolerance for training. We can only sit in a room getting trained so much. Orientation fatigue is inevitable, and many other people in needs are going to be trying to take their time and attention. Next slide, please. So we do have 5 recommendations. First, the time spent in early onboarding sessions is precious and must be laser focused on the highest priority topics based on 2 criteria. 1, include only information that prepares the team and its individual members to perform effectively on day 1 and defer other matters. 2, to limit it to information best communicated in person and in a group setting. Anything that can be addressed equally well by print, video, or other tools should be done by those means. Now, we also think a council reference manual should be completed no later than November 1st, 2024. It should be considered a living document, evolving as new information is introduced. Then, as a part of the mayor, council, auditor, staff roles and their responsibilities, there should be a clear delineation of responsibilities, expectations, and accountability for individual council members. That needs to be created, and GTAC will assist. 4th, early in their tenure, the new council should engage in a goal-setting process to develop a roadmap with a short list of council priorities for 2025, as distinguished from the city's priorities, including specific measurable objectives for themselves as a team. Through this process, they will share their values, aspirations, philosophies, and expectations, hopefully develop a common understanding of their current situation, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, challenges, and really forge their own identity as a team. 5th, we see GTAC as a partner in planning and developing the onboarding process and materials. We request a monthly meeting between transition staff and select GTAC members, adding the council operations manager when they're on board. We also have a few important additions to our recommendations. The mayor and auditor really play important roles in relation to the council, and they should participate in the onboarding sessions with the council, except when specific topics are better addressed separately. Council members will heavily be reliant on their personal aides. It's likely that they were going to identify these people as soon as their election, soon as their election is over and they've been elected. It's likely that many of them will be new to Portland government. So it's really essential to develop a detailed plan for onboarding them as well. We also need to get the right presenters and facilitators for every part of the process. Current city staff members will be perfect for some elements, but other elements are really going to require specialized expertise, credibility, and/or independence that staff don't have. Some might offer their services without charge. We can look at volunteers, the League of Oregon Cities, the National League of Cities, the ICMA, which I don't even know what that stands for.
International City County Manager Association.
Thank you, Zach. I'm not a big fan of all the acronyms. That we're gonna need budget for this. All those people are not free. And this might really present opportunity for outside funding. And then on behalf of the Districts and Council Operations Subcommittee, we recommend GTAC support these recommendations. Next slide, please. And I'll pass it over to Zach to facilitate discussion vote.
Great. Thank you. Does anybody have any items they want to discuss on this recommendation? Okay. All right. Well, I just want to, since I have the floor, thank this team that put together these recommendations. I do think it's really, really important that we think of the onboarding process holistically and give them as much support as we possibly can for a successful transition of new elected leadership. So can I ask, does anybody have a motion to approve these recommendations?
So moved.
Thank you, Fred. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm going to take Juliet online because we probably had a delay. Great. Then I think no other discussion. We will pass it over to Julia for another roll call.
I'm
Can I just say something quick about the onboarding, the meeting with the staff? So presently, I think it's Joe, Juanita, and myself that are going to be working closely with Tate. But if anybody else wants to join us, I think you're welcome. Let us know.
Great. Yeah, I would say if you're interested, maybe reach out to Julia for that process, just to streamline it. Good recommendation.
Oh, I'll do it. So for Money and David, who just came into the room, we are about to do a roll call vote on the onboarding recommendations. That is the most recent link in the chat. It is exactly the same document that you were sent 1 week ago, unamended or modified. Okay, so switching it up. Alphabetical order by last name. Leah is absent. David.
Money sensing the link.
David, can you hear me?
I can. I'm having some technical difficulties. That's why I keep popping in and out. So I'm sorry, what was the question again?
We're doing a roll call vote on the onboarding recommendations that were sent last week, exactly as they were sent.
Yes. I vote yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Jane.
Yes.
Jose.
Yes.
Money, do you need a minute?
Yes, please. Could I be the last?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
Terry.
Yes.
Lori. Yes. Joe.
Yes.
Juliet.
Yes.
Zach.
Yes.
Destiny.
Yes.
Fred.
Yes.
Amy Randall.
Yes.
Juanita.
Yes.
Amy W is absent. Money, do you want to cast a vote? It will not be determinative.
Yes. And yes.
Thank you. There's 13 yeses, so it passes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. I think next item is Destiny's.
Fabulous. Thank you, Zach. Just typing in a response to the Q&A and putting it in the chat for those working on the onboarding recommendation. Just a second. Thank you again, everyone, for that onboarding recommendations discussion and the recommendations. Now we're going to move on to the District and Council Operations Subcommittee. It's tasked on making recommendations to GTAC on future council districts and offices, including exploring expectations around district offices, outreach to the community, and constituent relations work. I just want to say thank you to all the subcommittee members for your work in this area. I recognize that these conversations about district offices are very, very passionate, and rightfully so, and that the corresponding issues of representation and access are also very important and challenging conversations to have coming from multiple lived experiences or perspectives, and ideas for improvements. I just want to remind folks that there is currently a council resolution in place that directs city staff to identify district offices that are going to be available by January 1st, 2025 that meet a set of requirements set forth by city council. There isn't currently a budget for these offices. Council can decide to allocate the money for offices. Council has expressed interest in GTAC's perspective on the topic related to district offices. If we want council to make its decisions with our input, I just want to flag that tonight is the night for us to decide on our perspective on district offices. The fiscal year 2024-2025 budget is already coming and going. So if any money is to be reserved in the fiscal year 2024-25 budget for in-district offices, council will need to understand the scope and related budget for that work immediately. So I just want to make that very clear that our goal is to have a conversation on whether or not we have a shared recommendation. We can have a shared one. We might not have a shared one. To put your perspectives in there and your truths responsibly so, and I want to make sure that we allow for enough people to put in their perspective, since this is the night that we can have that conversation. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Juliet, the subcommittee's co-chair, to present the recommendations set forward.
Thanks very much, Destiny. At our February 29th meeting, the Districts and Council Operations Subcommittee voted 5-2 to forward our district offices recommendations to the GTAC for your consideration and vote. A copy of the district offices recommendations was distributed last week to you all and was posted online. I want to start by expressing our appreciation to the facility staff at the city, particularly Maddie Souter, who has always responded to our questions and requests for information and joined our meetings. Our subcommittee's research and the research of city staff found that few cities with district representation have district offices, mostly due to cost and security concerns. The facility staff at the city estimate that one-time capital costs of creating in-district offices will cost between $600,000 and $1.8 million and approximately $1.7 million to maintain these assets each year. We believe that community engagement is needed before the city expends substantial money on district offices. We recognize that some parts of community, particularly East Portland, have less representation and access to local government, and that's something that should be rectified. We also understand that community members expect some access to district offices beginning January 1 of 2025. Next slide, please. Our goals are to ensure that ample research is conducted on representation and access issues before the dedication of substantial funding to council offices in each district. Also, to ensure that any funding that is expended on addressing issues of representation and access is appropriate for the district or districts in which it is targeted and meets the needs identified. And we want to provide at least minimal in-district office provisions for the new councilors. Next slide, please. We have 4 recommendations. First, the final decision on permanent in-district offices should be left to the future city council. Second, there should be a robust community engagement process about programming in these offices before the permanent decision. Third, the city should continue ongoing facilities research and scoping of in-district office work to ensure responsiveness to the direction of our future council. And fourth, temporary low-cost offices should be available in each district beginning January 1, 2025. The offices would provide room for up to 8 staff total per district and be near public transit. We want to note that there would be no expectation of security or technological systems. Based on information received from facilities, we recommend that council cap the total one-time capital investment across all 4 district offices at $150,000 total and $150,000 annually. On behalf of the districts and council operations subcommittee, we recommend that GTAC support these recommendations. Next slide, please, and I'll pass it back to Destiny to facilitate the discussion and vote.
Thank you, Juliet. Let's see here. So since I'm not used to having so much time for us to discuss, thank you all for your grace and us understanding when we can talk about things with or without motion. I'm just going to open up the space for a discussion and pause so that people can raise their hand. I'll start with you, Jose. And please raise your hand as Jose's sharing.
I will say that I have huge reservations about no security. Today I met with a candidate from District 1 for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. There are already death threats being leveled at candidates, like women of color that are getting death threats. A lot of them in a very not appropriate sexual nature of threats. All these kinds of things are already happening. I know another candidate that when she ran the first time, she had death threats, racist threats, all these things. And we've been told by facilities that our current council constantly asks for security in places where they don't have security. So I'm afraid we're just going to say, oh, let's do no security because it's cheaper. And they're just going to get in there and immediately ask for security and spend the money anyway, and then become more expensive because you didn't plan for it. So that's my big concern. And when talking to the candidate today, he was like, and me and a couple other guys, we've offered to like help them. And because Maddie pointed out that everyone gets threats, but he made it very clear, like it's different when a big white guy gets a threat than smaller women, people of color, like the way that they're acted on, and the way they handle them differently. I'm just afraid we're putting our future council members in a bad situation, saying that it's okay to put them in a place with no security. And I know that not having security might kill the district offices, and I'm, for one, 1,000% that we need actual people in the districts. So, but I don't want to do that if that means putting them in danger in any way. When Joan Hardesty was here, we know that her office was shot into 9 times. So yes, like everyone might get threats, but certain people get the threats acted on a lot more than others. And I'm just worried that it's disingenuous. It's easy to say, oh, we'll do it with no security, when is that really something that's going to happen or that we even want to happen? And that's my big concern.
Thank you, Jose, for sharing. I'm going to open it up again for raised hands. Juanita?
Yes, I agree with Jose in terms of the concerns with security. However, when we met and we had this big discussion about this issue, one of my concerns is that the city has been asked, the department to, one of the departments to create, to find, to put all this money down and create these buildings. It's actually, they were talking about construction and making a major investment in construction. And the thing that to me weighted a lot in terms of waiting is that there is no information from the for the city departments in terms of what type of programs are going to be operating out of those offices. What type, there's nothing. It's like we are planning or trying to make an investment in a vacuum without any solid information about what type of needs are we going to be meeting. So that's the only reason why I think waiting for a little bit longer to do the research and the work regarding the cost and the type of services, if there's going to be any services being provided in those offices, which is a big question. Nobody has an answer so far as we were informed in that meeting, that I just cannot promote to making such a huge investment that then may not just go to waste. But that's just my perspective, and I wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita. I'm going to pass it off to Bill.
Okay, thank you, Destiny. I'm wondering, did the subcommittee consider did the subcommittee consider possible less satisfactory but less costly alternatives? For example, providing Lyft or Uber, public transportation to come to, the major, or the central city offices for either, the counselors or someone who wishes to, attend. That doesn't provide an office in each district, but it would facilitate, it could facilitate, access. I'm just brainstorming. I know that's less satisfactory, but there might be approaches that enable security but are less cost.
Thank you, Bill. I raised my hand to respond to Bill, but I'll pass it off to Lori. I can wait.
I essentially wanted to say what Juanita said, and I just wanted to voice that in the subcommittee, I just felt that the spending any kind of money on this district office, particularly the small amount of money, which I think is the cheaper option, it feels a little bit like just checking the box and saying that we have in-district offices when we know that the other communities that we've looked at don't have in-district offices. I wholeheartafly feel like we need to do the programming research so we understand what the needs are for each of the districts, which may be different. And I'm afraid that putting in something to say that we've done something could invite things that, we haven't even anticipated, like things that Jose is bringing up. And so I like all the 3 points except for the temporary office.
Thank you, Lori. And then I raised my hand just to comment on Bill's question. I used to help parents with, applying to preschool and like things like TriMet passes, Uber things. That takes a huge administrative lift, and it's hard to get those resources out because you got to apply for things and you got to do dissemination of things, record keeping. And so having been in that cycle of trying to get resources and jump through those hoops, I wouldn't love to rely our future ideas that will save costs, because it's really hard to get that to every family that needs it or every voter who needs it or non-voter. So just flagging that from personal experience. And then I will pass it to Juliet.
I was just gonna respond to Bill's question and say, no, we did not have a discussion like that. I also want to add that, we concluded that cities that don't have in-district offices don't do so in part because of the cost of security. But that doesn't really matter because, and I talked to some that do have in-district offices and don't seem concerned about that, but it doesn't really matter because we know we have that issue.
Thank you, Juliet. I'll pass it to Jose.
Yeah, and I will say, even though I do have the reservations about having offices with no security. I think we need district offices. I do not care if every other city in the whole world does not have it because they don't want to spend the money. I talk to people on the east side all the time and they want their counselors nearby. They don't want to go downtown. They already don't come down. So we always talk about reaching these hard to reach populations, and these populations that never give public testimony don't come out. Well, they all live in District 1. District 1 has the largest concentrations of every minority group in. And they're not going to travel downtown to give public testimony. Doing a public engagement effort in the district is different than being in the district all the time. Because we talked about today, I was having a long conversation, how you go to all these events and you see very similar faces because there's certain people that just go to those things. But it's different if let's say, I mean, we were thinking, what if the offices were at Mall 205, it's empty, right? Right by Gateway, it's all this empty and there's a DMV there. So those people that are in line at DMV, they're not people that might ever go to City Hall. But what if their city council member walked by them while they were in line waiting for the DMV and they got to talk? You know, it's different if your office and you're working there and you're using your dollars at the businesses in that district and eating at the restaurants and meeting people in your district. So I do see huge value in that, but I do think we need to do it correctly. We are doing things with charter reform that have never been done before, but also they've been done before a million times in different ways in every city. If anything, our research showed us is that every city does things a little differently with what's good for their city. So I don't want us to get held up on a lot of people don't do district offices. Well, some people do district offices because it's important for their city. If it's important to us, we have a $7 billion budget. We'll figure it out. We'll pull it from somewhere. It's priority, right? Is that a priority for us or not? And I do think it's a priority, but we need to do it correctly and not put people in harm's way, do it that is long lasting. So I think it's more a longer conversation to just we need to decide it tonight. And that makes it difficult, right?
Thank you, Jose. I'm gonna pass it to Mani.
Hi, y'all. Great to see you. I have some dense questions that I know I should know the answers to. I was putting them in chat, but I'm just gonna rattle them here. Do the current commissioners already do they have anything outside of downtown? No. Okay. And then can you all remind me if there was any budget? I mean, I think this was the beginning of the conversation and the setup. Okay. No budget for in-district office. And then what is our current constituency process with commissioners? Is that the same? Is that the same mechanism for community engagement? So do they have a central database of all their constituents? And then when I call, when I call city councilor X as money citizen in their district, and I need help with something in the city, how is that logged? And what have other cities done? Another question followed by that is, with the cities that don't have in-district offices, what do they do in district? Are they having coffee chats on Saturdays where people can come to them in the neighborhood? So I just have a list of questions that would help me know how to answer what's been proposed.
Thank you, Mani. And I'm actually gonna flag that for staff. Is there a database that tracks that? No.
I mean, I can share from my own personal experience. Obviously, I was not a constituent services for an election. Like a collective database of, constituents who've reached in. Obviously, there's relationships that are built with constituent services, staff and knowledge of, those who maybe call in or provide an email and then they'll follow up, but it's more on a ad hoc case by case basis. I don't think there's any sort of, tracking log of all the constituents that are within the city who have reached out and how they've been interacted with, say.
So could I, just a quick follow-up, do we have a sense of if that's something that's in the budget, that technology piece, which is huge? Being a staffer for a state senator, that was something that was just a part of being a district staffer, that we had to log in every constituent call. It became a case, and then I know we're talking about access and in person, but this is another way of access. I understand phone and internet is still a problem. Access is just going to be a problem. We're not going to be able to solve for it entirely, I don't think, but I didn't know if that had been discussed, the technology piece, and what constituent services can look with that, or if the city has.
Wow. I will assume, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say thank you, Manny, for flagging those and like that experience I put in the chat, that to capture what you just shared of process. And Zach. And then yes, Juanita, please go.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Destiny. From the, and this is my assumption, is that if they're asking the city to come out with all of these options in terms of construction and, all of these things, I will imagine that somehow there is a belief that they're going to be able to have the funds to do the construction in the future. I don't know, but I mean, to me, why put the staff to work in something that is collecting data or proposing, making this plan just for wasting time? I don't know I cannot get into their minds as to what they're thinking, but to me is a sign that there's at least some thinking that, yeah, this is something that we can do. Now, I want to say that I totally agree with Jose regarding the need for the district offices, but I'm looking at it from a different perspective, not because it has to be the city council has to go and meet in those district offices. To me, the role of the district offices is the best opportunity to create truly grassroots community involvement from each of those districts, because then it's easier for them to organize, develop their own improvement plans for their neighborhoods, and then meet with the representatives from the council and say, this is our plan, this is what we need. But the needs are coming from the community, not from the top deciding what we need in the city, what are the priorities. They can not only identify their needs, but they also can advocate for the funding for those needs. So to me, the district offices play a much major role than just having somebody come from the city and have the city there. I think the services are also very important, but the role of the district offices is the opportunity to truly do community engagement from the grassroots level that can really hold accountable the city, because the representatives will be there working with them. So I think that's my, and also I want to share that I think I share with some of you the St. Paul's model. They do have district offices. They have 7, and it's the way they operate. They do this. They contract with another organization to do the management of the council or the group of the district's committee. And then they do those things. They meet regularly, monthly with their representatives. They do the planning of their community, the improvements, their art projects, all of kind of things that creates a community, a vibrant community. So anyway, thank you. Took too much.
Thank you, Juanita. I'm going to pass it to Zach.
Sure. So I don't know if we're at a point where we would want to entertain motion and consider amendments, but I wanted to share in the document that was included in an email with our meeting information. There was some brainstorming that a small group of our district office was put together. And I think it's just, I want to highlight it as an important reflection to this conversation. So I think that we can kind of brainstorm and think about what are the priorities for in-district offices, which we use as kind of context for this, potential proposed amendment. Things like increasing access to counselors from a, transit time opportunity cost. I'm sorry, I did economics, but like it takes a long time for people who live far away from City Hall to engage and access their counselors. And so that's obviously, I think many of us would agree is a priority. But there are other priorities that have been raised in our conversations tonight and also at our subcommittee, things like, increasing foot traffic and investing in districts that have historically been disinvested in the past or disenfranchised. There's a major element of safety and security, which I think is important for being able to effectively use in district offices. If counselors are unwilling to use it because of a safety concern, that's obviously connected well to fiscal responsibility. And so there's a lot of unknowns, and I just wanted to share, one element of a discussion and what we agreed on as a subcommittee is that there needs to be a community engagement piece of this that we should, regardless, I think, pass to council, that there needs to be an investment in understanding what kind of programming our counselors, distinct and unique in Portland, need. We did this research of all these other cities, and yeah, there was, if you look at it kind of from a simplistic standpoint, not many have in-district offices, and they have alternative ways of going about it with town halls or ad hoc coffee breaks or whatever. But those that do, they have made partnerships with community organizations. There's a very big spectrum of opportunity that can be unique to a community, and we need to understand that more to make sure that we're addressing the goals and the needs of in-district offices in an appropriate way. And I'll end by saying that the focus and the impetus of the amendment that we had drafted is really highlighting the eccentricities of each of districts. Like the equality is not what I think our goal is, right? We want to elevate and provide equity in access. And that's why we've kind of put a focus in on bringing people from the East Side and those who have been historically outside of City Hall decision-making into our engagement and education. And I think that's represented in this in-district priority that we have. And so I just, I think it's important that wherever we land on this conversation, that there should be a recommendation that from an equity standpoint, more investment be dedicated towards District 1.
Thank you, Zach, for sharing that. And I'm going to pass it off to Amy.
Yeah, I don't know if this is really going to add new information. I just wanted to echo some of the things. First, just how contentious this was in the subcommittee. I really want to elevate that, as this is something we really wrestled with. And Maddie joined us and was able to share a lot of information about the programming, and also that presently there's a mandate at council. There's a resolution that there should be offices by January 1st. So this letter is in opposition, is our statement against that, right? We're still asking them to change that, or it has something, just point of clarification, if that's
Change the scope.
change the scope of the present.
It will change the scope of it, like
Yeah.
not have as many requirements.
Yeah,
Right.
so we're reacting to something that's happening in real life here, and particularly a request from Maddie to react to that. Because if they don't act to change that scope, then they are mandated, the facilities team is mandated to build those. So just wanted to put that out there. And then secondly, I wanted to say I very much support removing the temporary office bullet point. I agree that it just feels like we are just adding it to add it and it's not adding value, in fact, might cause harm. And then finally, very unpopular opinion, I am in pretty big opposition to district offices as permanent fixtures. I really heard in our research that other cities really don't do this for a reason, and there's a lot of other good community engagement ways, especially if this is going to be a renewed effort of the city to engage with community engagement. And I also think the district offices, given the confusion with staffing presently, so everybody has a staff member, but then there's also district staff. So we don't know how the staffing is going to work with the council anyway, and it just is going to add, in my opinion, having district offices on January 1 would just add another layer of complexity to how does the council even work together. So just something I'm thinking about. And then I think that's all I've got.
Thank you, Amy. I'm gonna pass it to Terry.
Yeah, Amy just outlined sort of where I've been all along. And we had the discussion in the subcommittee about not having these temporary offices and let the future council decide. And we voted on it, and it narrowly did not pass. I'm personally still there. I don't think we've done the programming effort to understand what these offices do. And that's partly because I'm coming from a position of skepticism, because I don't think they do anything. I don't think council members are going to go to them. I don't think that an office, a conference room with chairs around them is going to help really anybody do any of their work. My experience in other cities is that councilors go out there in the streets. They do the foot traffic, they knock on doors, they have coffees, they go to, community centers, they go to neighborhood associations. That's their job, and that's where they get their votes. And that's how that's going to happen. That's just my prediction. But stepping back, we as GTAC could do the community engagement to figure it out between now and January. If there is a movement in any of the districts, especially District 1, that offices is what we want, here's what they're going to look like, and here's the candidates who are coming out, and going to campaign and saying, yeah, we want these offices, and here's what we'll do with them, and build that support, then that just looks differently in January than it does now, when we really don't know, and we're trying to cut a budget. So we're, shortcut security, we're going to shortcut communications, and we're going to have a card table with chairs around it. So in the spirit of what the subcommittee did decide, and to move this along for the chairs a little bit, I will go ahead and move the original proposal that has the temporary stuff in it, so that we can put that on the table now, because that was the recommendation of the subcommittee group. And then we can talk about amending it. Right? So does that help you guys at all? Oh, because I'll move that now.
Terry's motioning to move the recommendation. Do we have a second?
Second.
Amy second. So now that motion that came out of the district office recommendation with the temporary offices is now open for discussion. Joe, I'm gonna call you because you've been waiting. Do you have a comment for now that we're in motion?
Yeah, I think I do. All what I'm going to do is just sort of craft what I was going to say anyway to fit this. I, I think this is a great discussion, and I think it's exactly the kind of discussion that we need to be having. And I think that we're not going to be done with this discussion in the next 17 minutes. So we need to find some way to continue it, because I think this is a really critical question. One of the reasons that people voted for the new charter is because they expected Portland government to be more accessible and more inclusive. And I think that our new city councilors are going to expect that on day one. And I think their constituents are going to expect that on day one. Long term, I think that district offices are important. I think that having a more substantial presence in East Portland is important. And I agree with Jose that we need to do that correctly and long lasting, but we're not going to be able to do that by January 1st of 2025. And so we've got 3 bad choices. And the fact that they're bad choices doesn't mean that we get to duck away from them. One of them is we do it correctly, we do it long lasting, and it's not going to be in place by January 1st of next year. The second is the priority is to get it in place by day one, and we do it incorrectly and ad hoc. And that's a bad choice too. And the third, which I think is the best of the bad choices, is we do pop-ups, we do something so that there is some semblance of the kind of accessibility that people expect next year. It's not going to have the kind of security we need. It's not going to have the kind of technology that we need long-term, but it's better than coffee shops. And the fact is, councilors are going to meet with their constituents in their districts, and they're going to have less security. They're going to have less accountability, less visibility. And this is at least a way to do something while we take the time to do it correctly and long lasting.
Thank you, Joe. I'm actually gonna go ahead, since I haven't spoken on the matter, and also note that we have a little bit over 10 minutes for this conversation. I just wanted to echo, now that this is in motion, that I feel like having equality in all temporary district offices January 1st just doesn't make sense to me. I referenced it in the amendment that, we could bring up again, that District 4 has the incomparable assets of City Hall, city government, transit, the business, like longstanding history. And if we don't provide anything towards District 1, or also approach it in a way that's like, what does District 2 or District 3 need as their own districts with their own setups, I think we are not serving ourselves. It's hard to say, oh yeah, your counselor's going to meet you at a coffee shop when you're all the way in District 1 and then you have to vote in City Hall. That's right there. Like, you constrain capacity for counselors and their staff when we think about it that way. Like, how can someone go meet their community and make it back to City Hall at whatever time it is to make a vote? We do live in a hybrid place, but I do think we need to have better conversations on the equitable way that our counselors in District 1s are even going to operate in City Hall and in community, because there's those physical barriers for themselves as well. I don't know, Zach, if you mentioned it earlier, I've been trying to manage the chat, but we did some outreach to some, district coalition offices about their thoughts of temporary offices. And they, some of them were like, we would love to have it. We would love to get the rent as a temporary solution if needed, which is great. So like perhaps District 4, I don't think it needs a district office. Perhaps District 2 and 3, there's already facilities there. There's nothing in District 1. So I don't think any budget is going to be, if it's an equality basis, it's not going to serve good programming. And so I think we just need to be acknowledging of that and let council know that. And again, while we might not have consensus, city council needs to at least have an opinion or no opinion, some guidance, because they need to make this decision on maintaining permanent district offices or another solution that's informed by us and community. Okay, thank you. And I'll pass it to Jose.
I just wanted to mention, again, we did talk about how this same thing without the temporary offices failed. Some of the reasons it failed is because hunting it just makes everything take longer. I'm saying do it right, but we have to start the process now. Facility takes years. Some of the people that are being elected in this next election are only going to be in office for 2 years. Half the council might actually not ever see an office if we say the new council gets to decide. So what's the difference of the current council starting the process of deciding and figuring out and starting I'm not saying they have to be built by January 1st, but if we wait till January 1st to do anything, that's another how many months before anything ever happens? When some of us do think district offices are very important, like you said, being able to travel, being able to go back and forth between the two is very important. And other cities don't need it because other cities, a lot of them, City Hall is really central. That's not the case in Portland. Portland City Hall is not very central to District 1, you know? So I'm not saying everything needs to be done by January 1st. I'm saying it's hard for me to back a proposal where we just punt it to the council to decide in the future when things could get started now. But I just think we just should look at it and do it correctly from the beginning. Do more outreach to the community, talk to the candidates and see what they have to say. We know how many candidates, we can talk to them and see what they think. There are things we can start doing. And just saying, let the next council decide, it's going to put a halt on everything and nothing is going to happen for how many months? Which is what I don't want.
Thank you, Jose. I'm going to pass it to David and also time check that we're at 47 and we have to 7:55 for this part of the agenda. David.
Is being high maintenance tonight. The only thing I wanted to say was that I think that we definitely need to have temporary offices. We need to give this new form of government every tool necessary and available to be successful. And I think that because we're not going to have permanent offices January 1st, 2025, and giving them the ability to be able to settle down and be able to reach out into the community. I mean, who's going to want to sit around in a coffee shop that may or may not close at certain times, or that coffee shop is saying no? I mean, you need to have stability for these new set of councilmen, and going straight to the office, to whether or not it's temporary or not, provides that, instead of having to hunt around, make sure this place is open, or if this owner says no, then you got to look for another place. I think having temporary offices helps. Like I keep repeating myself, helps with the stability of that. So I definitely would vote yes on the temporary office.
Thank you, David. And then Juliet.
Maybe this is a rhetorical question, but I'm just wondering, in a perfect world, what would constitute adequate security in these offices? And maybe Jose, you have a sense of that from your conversations with people, with candidates, and I'm going to ask the ones in my district too.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it would entail to be the adequate security. I would even say if we said that security can be left up to the individual council members, because some people might need and want security and some people might not. So maybe that's a compromise. I don't think it's particularly great, but it might be a good compromise that some people feel like they need it.
Yeah.
I'm just a little worried about the security aspect, but I also don't want to punt it. I know this is a very hard conversation and it's not easy. And there's also a lot of, like David said, he talks about infrastructure because we have one coffee house in my giant neighborhood. One total. And if you include the 3 neighborhoods around me, we have 3 total. When you do come in the Southeast, there's like 1 in every corner. So it's even that kind of infrastructure is rare on the east side. So that's kind of why I'm so loud and talk so much more on this than I ever have before on anything, because the east side is hungry for these types of improvements, of these types of things. And we're finally seeing a chance to maybe get some of this. And it's like, we have to ask for the world, so maybe you can get a little crumb at the end, you know?
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, so we have 4 more minutes in this discussion. I'm actually gonna cut the conversation because these conversations have been happening a lot. And so I'm going to call it for a vote now at this point, since everyone's put their piece multiple times, some from our committee. Whether or not you vote yes for this recommendation, including temporary low-cost offices available in each district beginning January 1st. I'm gonna pass it over to Julia.
Can I just raise a point of procedure here? It seems to me that we all understand that there's this motion and that there's this amendment. And formally, if the amendment is on the table, we vote on the amendment first, and then we vote, if it passes, we vote on the amended motion. And if we can, I'd like to do that so that we sort of don't jump ahead.
Thank you, Joe, for motioning that amendment to be brought to the table. Can I have a second?
What is the amendment?
The amendment is essentially what's in the second document that we received, and maybe one of the authors could summarize that.
I'll pass it off to Zach.
That's sorry. Yeah, so I'll just provide basic kind of summary, which is that it's you know, a focus on goals and values for these district offices should be better understood, and that equality is not equity, and not one size fits all. A one size fits all is not the correct approach. And recognizing that District 4 has a city hall and resources within it, that there should be a greater investment in areas outside of District 4. So I will just post the explicit change in the chat, but I wanted to be brief.
Yeah, I just want to clarify that my understanding from that meeting and when we decided to make these recommendations is that basically all we're asked, at least what I hear from the city staff, is that all they're asking is for the GTAC support the supports that we will have temporary office on January 1st of 25. That's all, because they felt that they couldn't come up with a plan without knowing what the space was going to encompass in terms of the needs of each of the districts and the you know, whatever. But anyway, so I think that a lot of the discussion is like almost like we are going to approve that we're not talking about saying that there will not be district offices. We all are saying is that, yes, that we will ask the city for them, because it was a resolution passed, to have all of this information provided to the city council by really soon. And so all we're doing is supporting the staff and saying that they cannot come out with that because there's a need to be more planning. So that's all it is. It's just temporary office in the beginning, not that it won't be construction or permanent office in the future. It's just that we are saying that it's better to plan, have more plan and more research done before we start constructing buildings. That's all. That's my understanding. So I just need to clarify that, because it seems like we are talking about a much more greater change that we're going to approve.
Juanita, thank you. So Zach put the amendment in the chat, and that amendment is specifically for line item 4 in the district office's recommendation. So moving outside of temporary low-cost offices should be available in each district beginning January 1st, 2025, to the amended language in the chat that temporary low-cost offices should be available in districts 1, 2, and 3 beginning January 1st, 2025. And then it says specifically, District 4 has the incomparable assets of City Hall, Portland City Building, transit infrastructure, and will be the hub of daily city affairs. District 1 has historically been disenfranchised and lacking investment from the City of Portland, particularly in city-owned assets and engagement. Thus, temporary and permanent in-district offices will require more investment, community engagement, scoping of work and development for in-district offices to become equitable realities. Equality does not promote equity. Any temporary or permanent in-district office recommendation should be aligned with district needs rather than a one-shoe-fits-all approach. So everything from the final decision left to the future city council, a robust community engagement to identify programming, and the city should continue ongoing facility research and scoping remains the same. It's just that fourth one. And Juanita, this is just if we want to provide a recommendation from our subcommittee because the council has already charged the facilities team to provide district offices. So that's either we let them continue with that decision or we provide recommendations.
Can we extend this meeting by 15 minutes?
Yes, but I
mean, I think the answer is you can, and it's been noticed for a period. I would recommend we get to voting on the amendment.
Yeah.
Because based on the subcommittee conversations, I do think in some ways you could extend it till tomorrow. And
yeah.
we would still be talking with each other.
But we've only got 3 minutes if we're really going to end at 8. Even just to vote on the amendment and the motion is going to take longer than that.
Joe, you motion to extend the meeting for 15 minutes?
Yeah.
A second. Jose seconded. Hands in agreement. I see all hands in person. Let me see virtually. I'm seeing hands.
Yeah.
Jane, I don't know if you're voting yes. Okay. Abstaining, I think. Manny. Okay, so it's approved. So we're extending to 8:15.
Okay. Now we can approach the amendment.
Okay, and now we have the amendments. And we're going to vote on the amendment from my understanding. We're pushing to vote. Okay.
Quick discussion on the amendment really quick.
Okay, I will briefly please.
In that, first of all, just a couple points. I'm in the awkward position of not wanting these offices at all and now defending an office for District 1. But I think not including District 1, just that's what it is because it's not equitable, is dead on arrival in City Hall. I don't think that's going to happen. And second of all, District 1 is huge. I mean, you go from Linton to Lake Oswego.
Talking about District
4. District 4, right? District 4.
Thank you.
District 4 is huge. And third of all, there's programming for City Hall renovations that don't account for these sorts of things. City Hall renovations are having City Hall conference rooms being built for specific programming in City Hall. There aren't separate rooms available for the District 1 meeting rooms. It's just, they don't exist. So you are now impacting how City Hall renovations are going to go. And then I just feel awkward about it. I don't think, I understand equity is not equality. A better amendment, I think, would be do a full-blown, high-security, nice district office in District 1, no district offices for the rest of them. And that's how it should look like. And a full East Side Service Center, the start of an East Side Service Center.
I'm gonna leave right now.
But for just leaving out District 4, I think is the wrong move. It's dead on arrival and it has collateral consequences. So I'm going to vote no, and that's why.
Okay, thank you, Terry. And Bill also respectfully shared sentiments of not wanting to exclude District 4 because he's also in District 4 and that same concerns about division. And then are these questions supporting not adopting amendment? Because if they are, quickly share your reasonings. And if you are in support, quickly share your reasonings. I will pass it to Juliet.
I'm not sure yet. I mean, I think that why do we need to make a decision about District 4 now? They have an office. My questions are, is it secure? I don't know. I don't go down there at night by myself. What does secure mean and for whom? Is it affordable? I don't know. How long is their lease? I mean, I don't know. I really don't know the profile of that office enough to make the decision, but it seems like it doesn't need our attention at the moment because it's there. So I think I would vote for the amendment.
Juliet, what office are you talking about?
District 4 office.
Isn't that City Hall?
No, our coalition has an office in Old Town.
That's not the District 4 office.
There is no District 4.
But the
District offices?
the District 4 coalition would like it to be in an Old Town office. Okay, and so what you're saying is.
Wait, I'm gonna
Okay.
actually cut you off. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go to Jose's comment quickly.
I helped craft this amendment. My original amendment was exactly what Terry said about not having district office anywhere else, do a bigger one in close District 1 or close to Gateway, where like the 3 districts meet, and make it one place with high security with all the stuff. That's a little bigger, that might be cheaper. That's what I said would probably be more doable as well and have all those features in. I will say the reasoning behind no District 4 is that they are doing offices in City Hall to have space for all the districts, including shared conference rooms. So they would have space to meet, and that does have security. So the idea of not making a second lo-fi, no security office in District 4 isn't even like to hold something back from District 4, is they already have a secure area that they can meet. It's safer to just tell them to meet at City Hall. And the coalition office is less central, like farther away from Lake Oswego and all those places than City Hall. So even that argument was like, so that's why, but I do agree. It should, I also think it should be one big center farther east and leave it at that. And that's cheaper and safer and all the things, but that's a different conversation. Like I said, we need more conversation.
Okay, thank you, Jose. I think we've all have shared our perspectives on this. Again, this is to provide city council a recommendation, whether or not to change their charge. They have not made a budget. They're waiting. And so I think at this point, more discussion needs to be had. And I think we're probably going to still charge that anyways. But I'll open up a vote for the amendment, which is in the chat again, to switch bullet 4 for temporary low-cost offices available in each district beginning January 1st, 2025, to having available temporary low-cost district offices in 1, 2, and 3 beginning January 1st. District 4, we talked about the equity stance in that statement, and then prompting them to think of to approach each district based on needs rather than a one shoe fits all. So we're gonna vote and we're gonna do a roll call.
Okay,
And if this passes, it only goes forward if the main motion passes.
Right.
Yes.
so there will be more voting. Alphabetical by first name. Ready? Amy Randall.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Amy Wood is absent. David,
I vote yes.
Destiny,
Yes.
Fred, had to go. Jane,
No.
Joe,
Yes.
Jose,
Yes.
Juanita,
No.
Juliet,
No.
Thea is absent. Lori,
No.
Money,
No.
Terry,
Oh,
Seth.
Yes. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Do we want to post the amendment of one district?
No, we can.
That's 6 yeses and 6 no's.
Yeah, further investigation into where district offices.
Now we go back to the original recommendation because that amendment failed.
We propose what Terry said.
Do not have the time for that conversation.
I mean,
Can you do it quickly?
Can motion to say instead of temporary in each district, to one larger center on the east side that can house more.
Let me try and friendly amendment this to get it so that it'll work.
No,
I would say,
Jesus Christ.
the current proposal is temporary district offices in all four, right? The lo-fi 150K budget thing, right? About adding to that or one single east side district for 1, 2, and 3. With security, with whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And give that option to city council and let them budget and think about it.
I don't think that we're trying to determine in this recommendation how many offices. That will come later when the research is done and the planning is done, and then they will equity and everything will be considered. We don't have to try to put these things into this vote because it's like they're not asking us to do any of that. The only reason we're doing this recommendation is because what the city asked, the staff asked us, and we agreed that we needed to have more time to planning and for research. I'm just concerned that we're wasting too much time trying to put things that don't go with the original reason why we're making these recommendations. Just want to comment that. I'm just too much time.
Thank you, Juanita.
so Terry, can I ask, because I'm going to try to write this so that we have something on the record. So friendly minute is striking the 4 temporary lo-fi offices in each district and making a recommendation that there be one central, or is it in addition to 2? So not striking out the 4 lo-fi, but in addition to them.
Or.
Say
or.
And or.
Strike that as well?
Yeah, or.
Okay. Okay, I see.
I agree, Juanita. I agree. Again.
Then
we should be-
withdraw your amendment. Then if you
Okay.
agree with me, withdraw the amendment. So we can move on.
It's got an old error, sorry. I'm gonna rewrite it.
So we're at 8:08.
So close.
You can get it done.
Zach is retyping the friendly amendment.
Original.
I asked a question while retype. Sure. I don't want a no vote for this to mean that I don't want to go ahead with the research. And I also don't mean that the research should start when the new officers come in place. It should start now.
Yes.
Perhaps we have a recommendation in place, but I don't want to vote no and have nothing happen.
Yes.
We need to motion to refer it to the subcommittee. Maybe can we refer it back to the subcommittee?
Don't really have to.
We don't have time.
Council's gonna make it.
I agree with this. And can I call the question on those first 3 elements?
Which has mostly consensus.
Which has, I think,
Yeah.
consensus. So if call the question on those first 3 and then have the additional amendment.
I don't think the first point has consensus.
Would it be possible for us to have another subcommittee of the people who are sort of most passionate about this and have a special meeting of this group in a week?
No.
No, we don't have the time. This
A
Okay.
week? We couldn't meet in a week?
No, they're gonna have all of this information provided to them. All of our opinions, all of our information, all of our amendments for them to make a recommendation, whether or not we have a formal one. That's left to be decided. And so there was a friendly amendment to add or make one central east side office located in District 1. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a
Zach.
second from Zach, from Terry's friendly amendment. Do we want to have a conversation or would we just like to have a vote?
Get the vote.
Just a vote? Okay, we're gonna push it to a roll call vote. On the friendly amendment.
Of the friendly amendment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing it in the same order. I'm sorry. No, all right, yeah, then Zach, backwards. Okay, we'll do it the reverse.
Oh,
Zach,
yes to the amendment.
Terry,
Yes.
Lenny,
Monty, you're,
Sorry. Oh. Can you come back to me, please?
yes,
Is that possible?
yeah. Lori. No. Leah. Julia,
Yes.
Juanita,
No.
Jose,
Yes.
Joe,
No,
Jane,
No.
Fred is absent. Destiny,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Amy Wood is absent. Amy Randall. Yes. Money,
No.
um, 7 yeses, so that is not enough.
So that friendly amendment does not get added. It failed on vote. And so now we're at our original motion for that district office recommendation. Which is the final decision for permanent in-district offices to be left to future city council, that there should be a robust community engagement process for programming for the permanent decision, that the city should continue ongoing facilities research and scoping of in-district offices to ensure responsiveness at the direction of future council, and that temporary lo-fi offices should be available in each district beginning January 1st. Again, this is a recommendation we're putting forward, including all the conversations we have had. And does anyone want to have a conversation in the last 3 minutes, or can we move forward to a roll call? I don't see any takers, and so I'm gonna again go to Julia to do the roll call.
Okay. Amy Wood is absent. Juanita,
Yes.
Amy Randall. Yes. Fred is absent. Destiny,
Yes.
Zach,
I'm a no on the principle.
Juliet,
Yes.
Joe,
yes,
Lori,
Oh.
Terry,
Yes.
Lenny,
Yes.
Jose,
Bill didn't address security, so no. Bill didn't address security, so no.
Jane,
I'm with Joe. No.
David,
I vote yes.
sorry, what?
He voted yes.
Yes. And Leah is absent. Eight, that passes.
So our recommendation has passed. They will be provided this recommendation and plus more information of all of our conversations and viewpoints. Thank you, everyone. This could have gone forever, but again, the work continues. This is just our recommendation. The meeting, I want to hold just a pause for any observations real quick.
yeah, I want to make a really quick observation. In spite of how frustrating this last discussion was, I think this was a great meeting. I think it's because we're setting our own agenda, because we're actually engaging with one another. The presentations we've had have been great, but at this point, we're all dressed up and it's time for us to go out. And I think that particularly working in small groups has allowed us to have real conversation and to get to know one another better and really be effective and productive and more satisfying for me personally. And let's see what happens with these recommendations if they go nowhere, I'm going to feel really different than I do right now.
Thank you, Joe, for your observations. I'm going to speed through this. The upcoming meetings will be up here real quick. The District and Council Operations Subcommittee and the Transit Team are co-hosting 3 community listening sessions tomorrow and March 21st are virtual, and March 19th session is in person in East Portland. We encourage everyone to attend and to please help spread the word. The Budget Work Group meets Monday, March 18th. The District and Council Operations Subcommittee meets March 28th. The Voter and Education and Outreach Subcommittee meets April 2nd, and our next regular committee meeting is the 9th. We will also need to schedule our July and September GTAC meetings. You will have a doodle poll in your email. Please complete if you already have it. Next slide, please.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Destiny.
Oh, baby. Adore you all. Thank you.